For the last 10 years, Veganuary has encouraged many people to eat vegan in January, the month of New Year's resolutions. But this year I just found it's all a bit quiet. No longer, because our good friend is on the line. One of our most prominent and famous vegans, Dr. Roger Yates. Welcome back to Late Lunch.
Hey, Gerry, how are you doing?
I'm doing really well. Am I right? Is it a little bit low-key this year, Roger? Is that just my perception?
Yeah, well, first of all, Gerry, is it too late to wish you a Happy New Year?
Not at all, never.
Okay, right, that's done then. Yeah, well, I was looking around on the internet in the last hour or so. There seems to be a lot of press about it, but everything else seems to be a bit low-key, I do agree. I think they've kind of gone for kind of corporate things, maybe, you know, that kind of stuff, and so it's not been the big kind of media splash as usual.
And, you know, it's 10 years, I suppose, too, because, you know, to keep the momentum going over a decade is a challenge in itself, Roger. But look, I want to ask you this, because I have your press release and I've had it a little while. And one thing popped out at me, and I think it's you that's quoted saying this, our aim is to prevent the philosophical heart of veganism becoming lost due to everyone thinking that veganism is, by and large, a plant-based diet. But isn't it, Roger?
Well, it involves a plant-based diet, but that's not it. In fact, that's only a small part. If you think about the philosophy of veganism, then we're talking about a movement towards peace. In fact, you could call, although some people might think this is a bit overblown, but you could call veganism the ultimate peace movement. It was started during the last years of the Second World War, and it was about peace aims. It was about non-violence, you know, and it was about the moral evolution of humanity, this kind of stuff. So it's a big idea, but it's got a diet or a dietary aspect to it.
By God, do we need that peace in the world at this time, Roger, more than ever?
Absolutely. And in fact, I think I said that at the bottom of the press release, the fact that if you look around the world now, in particular, we've obviously got certain things in mind. We need vegan values more than ever. I don't know if you remember, Gerry, when you first interviewed me, I said that I thought that it can't be good for people to digest and metabolize violence 3 times a day. And you asked me if I was serious. And I think it's in that kind of vein that this kind of thing comes over. The idea that if we ingest violence, then it's got to come out somewhere. Whereas if we live in terms of peace, if we live in terms of justice, and that's the main value really of veganism, justice. You know, the VIP, the group that I represent, we've got a big banner saying justice before profit. If we as a people on the planet were to ask this question, is that just rather than is that profitable, we would be in a different world, wouldn't we?
Oh, absolutely. And the more I live, the more I see through this whole thing, this never-ending strife for growth, for profit. It's just non-stop, and we have to grow every year and grow and grow and grow. But this planet's finite, isn't it, Roger?
It is, and of course, you know, there are lots of, you know, a scientific consensus that we are really on the brink of a major disaster. You know, I sometimes think, I think you'll probably agree with this, Gerry, that human beings are very clever, but not necessarily wise. And I think the way that we treat the environment is a great demonstration of that.
You couldn't, I suppose, put it any better, I have to say. Come back to this Veganuary and a decade on. Has it, you know, attracted more people to the movement?
Well, I don't know. Maybe the novelty is one off. That's one thing that might talk about the quietness of it. But I think that, you know, because one of the questions we posed in the release was, does it hinder or help veganism? And I think Veganuary can do both of those. Over the years, the ethical component of the Veganuary website has kind of changed. You know, there's been some years when it's been good, other years when it's not so good. This year happens to be one where it's pretty good. You know, their value statements are really good. They want to bring about a vegan world, you know, and it's got vegan values kind of up front, really. Because, you know, people say to me, well, it doesn't really matter. You know, if you can get people to stop oppressing and exploiting other animals, then whatever reason they do it, that's good. But the research suggests that if they don't do it for ethical reasons, then they quickly stop doing it. So it's always been the case that if you're vegan for ethical reasons, you tend to stick with it. And of course, that's exactly what we want people to do.
It's funny, one of my previous guests, Damien Hannigan, from the Deer Alliance, we were talking about this proposed cull, and I did say to him, and again, I'm a sportsman myself, I've hunted, I fish myself and things like that, and I love the outdoors, but I'm beginning to think that all we want to do in Ireland is shoot and kill and, get rid of every creature that's natural to our landscape.
Yeah, well, I think that goes back to vegan values. Like the last thing we would do is want to reach for the gun if we've got a problem. And, obviously deers do create, certain problems in the world.
Yeah, and we accept that, yeah.
Yeah, and so, but you won't necessarily just reach for the gun as a solution. And, from my rights-based position, it would mean that we would approach other animals as fellow rights bearers. And then on that basis, try to sort out what the issue is. But what you don't do is reach for the poison, reach for the gun, and just do it through violence.
Yeah, when you talk about the wider aspect of veganism, that justice-based philosophy, the peace movement, etc., it is far wider than that narrow, and that's why I wanted you to just explain that to our listeners as well. Coming back to the actual food itself, and you and I have talked a lot about this in the past. Another thing we addressed on the show with Laura Amada earlier in the week was, the lack of nutritional value in food, and indeed in fruit and vegetables, and all it takes to spray them and keep pests off them, etc. What about that concern? What do you say to that?
Yeah, well, there's a big issue within the vegan movement, and in fact, it actually started in the 1950s, but it's come to a head in relation to like crop deaths, for example. So a lot of vegans are now looking at things like veganic agriculture, but also things like vertical farming, the kind of indoor kind of farming kind of things, which would then mean that you don't use pesticides, you don't need insecticides, you don't need any of those bad things. Everything would not only be organic, it would be veganic, which is the best you could have. And so there's a lot of people looking into that, alternative forms. And in fact, again, going back to the environment, we've got lots and lots of land, we've got derelict buildings. All of these could be producing fruit and vegetables. And that's probably going to be the way that we get out of the problems in the future.
Yeah, I was looking at a wonderful place. I think it's underground in London, so many levels of it. I forget what it was used for in the past, but they're growing everything in there as well, and it seems to be doing really quite well. What about the aspect of, out socialising, you go out for a meal, and I know you and I, from we first met, I put this to you, we're in 2024 now, Roger. Is the vegan palate catered for well now in restaurant menus and that whole type of area, hospitality?
Yes, indeed. In fact, about two years ago, there was a memo that went around the kind of restaurant business, really, based on their journal research. And what they found was that vegans would be going out with their mates for a meal. And so you might have 4 people, one of which is vegan. And so they realized that if you don't cater for vegans, you lose all 4 of them. So it came like an economic imperative that people would kind of cater for that demographic. And so rather than just having one vegan option, which was kind of pretty standard, there would be competition to get more to attract the vegan, which brings the other 3 in, if all that makes sense.
Yeah, it does indeed, because you're going to lose. You're going to lose the lot if you don't cater for. No, I ask you that, and I'm quite aware of myself. There's a sea change there, and it is good to see. What about supplementation? Is it important? They say to us, "Oh, you need your proteins, you need this, that, and the other. You're not going to get it if you go down this road." Talk to me about that again for a moment.
Yeah, there's been a kind of generational difference within vegans. I mean, I'm an old-time vegan. I'm 45 years vegan now, and I didn't supplement for the first 30-odd years, and a lot of my peer group were like that. The modern-day vegans are much more kind of in tune with it, but that's because the medical advice now is, say, if we take something like B12, the medical advice is for everybody over 40, certainly over 50, to be taking that supplementation. And one thing, of course, that flesh consumers don't know is that they inject B12, etc., into the so-called cattle. So everyone is being supplemented. regardless of their diet.
Interesting when you mention. Are you sure of that?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. It's a standard practice now. Yeah.
There you go. Back to the point of Veganuary again. We've lots of people listening to us today, and we'll be re-listening on the podcast and all over the place online, etc. If somebody's curious to find out more, it's only what, the 11th, 12th of January at this stage, the 12th, should I say? Where can they get more information about the Veganuary, push?
Well, Veganuary's got its own website, so you could go there. It's actually got a very this is ironic, really, but they've got a very impressive list of recipes, as you'd expect. But if you want to go for the ethics, and I would probably go elsewhere. There's a great little site called helpgoingvegan.info. That's really good. People can go there and get much more of the ethics. Actually, watching the ethical stuff online, the famous animal rights philosopher is called Tom Regan. If you look for Tom Regan online, then you get the reason why as well as the how. And so if you put those two together, you've got to coin a phrase, the recipe.
Veganuary, the website, or helpgoingvegan.info, as Roger mentions there. It's always good to talk to you. I have always said to you, I admire what you do, and I'm delighted to have you back with us on Late Lunch at the start of the new year. Until the next time, Dr. Roger Yates, thank you so much.
And thank you for having me, Gerry. Take care.
You're very welcome. Take care of yourself. Roger Yates there, speaking to us about Veganuary on Your Late Lunch. Still to come.